Today we're speaking with Dr. Matt Zekreski from Susquehanna, New Jersey. I hope I said that. And he is a professor and a psychologist and a neurodiversity ally. Thanks so much for coming. We'd really like to know, what do you do? How are you of service to people who are neurodiverse?
It's probably shorter to tell you all the things I don't do. We try at the Neurodiversity Clinic to be as much of a one-stop shop as we can. We offer primarily mental health therapy and coaching, and we also advocate for our clients. We go to IEP meetings and 504 meetings. We go to school board meetings. We speak at a lot of conferences. I fly all over the country speaking to organizations to both advocate and inform, right? Trying to make things better for all the kids. I just wrote a book on how to help kids understand their brains. Yeah, we wear a lot of hats over here, but when you're working with someone whose needs are global, you have to be able to meet their needs globally.
What's the name of your book so we can let our listeners know?
The name of the book is The Neurodiversity Playbook: Cracking the Code of a World Not Built for You. The whole idea is that 4 out of 5 people are neurotypical. They built the world, they created the monoculture. Neurodivergent folks are a minority. We are constantly rubbing up against a world that is not built for us. We can retreat into our little towers, or we can develop the skills to navigate that world. As a person who's been described many times as aggressively pragmatic, navigating the world is an important set of skills. It's about being able to code switch into neurotypical world and then code switch out of it to be yourself when the time is right.
When you say do you consider yourself neurodiverse as well?
I do. Yeah. I often say this work is personal and professional for me. I was identified as gifted when I was in second grade, as a lot of kids are. Then I did middle school, high school, all that fun stuff. When I got to high school, I started to struggle. What's going on here? We realized that I was so smart that no one had ever noticed that I have ADHD. They had noticed, but it didn't rise to the level of a problem. My backpack always looked like a bomb went off. I was always 3 minutes late to everything. But when you're a really smart kid and you forget that there's a test and you say for 3 minutes in the class passing period and you get a 93, no one ever asks you if you have ADHD. They only look at the output. You
It's
know,
not true in all cases that
no,
people
no,
who are
right.
neurodiverse are gifted, but when you
Right.
are gifted and you're neurodiverse or especially have ADHD, it creates a special set of
Right.
problems.
Increasingly, the research shows that giftedness is itself a neurodivergence. There are fundamental differences to the gifted brain, and we know one neurodivergence predicts other ones. So you're much more likely to be dyslexic if you're ADHD. You're much more likely to have dysgraphia if you're OCD. These things correlate because a different brain predicts further differences. I do a lot of assessment work, and I'm always trying to find out the right diagnostic cluster for the kids I work with. This is messy. It's messy stuff. We're trying to see the brain scans and see the research and find the right accommodations to help people navigate the world more effectively.
Do you do neuropsychological assessments, those 1 to 2 day workups? Is that what you do?
So the ethics code details that I cannot say I'm a neuropsychologist because I'm not a neuropsychologist. Neuropsychology is the next tier up within the psychology field. I have some amazing colleagues who are neuropsychologists. For the really complex cases, I send people to them. I do all of the assessments that I am able to do with the training I have, which is more than your average clinical psychologist because I work with such a neurologically complex population. I'd bring a lot of tools to the toolbox. We're trying to give the most complete picture we can to the school, to the office, wherever this report's going to be used. I do psychoeducational testing, not neuropsychological testing.
What percent of your clientele has ADHD versus other types of neurodiversity?
I would say 61% of the people on my caseload have an ADHD diagnosis. It's also a self-selecting population because people know I'm that guy. They seek me out for kids who have those challenges. If you talk to a lot of clinical psychologists who work with neurodivergent people, you'd see very similar numbers with my colleagues as well.
What percent are girls, since that's our particular interest?
Yeah. One of the things is we try and use gender neutral language, because we know a lot of neurodivergent people are LGBTQ, and a sizable percentage are people who are either trans or gender non-binary. Girls is a population that absolutely I work with. I also work with people who are assigned female at birth and socialized females. If I'm going to loop those two groups together, then I have 37 girls and people assigned female at birth on my caseload. Of those, 24 are active clients right now. It's about 40% of who I see are girls and people who are assigned female at birth.
Interesting. I just wondered if you'd seen anything shift over that time. When I was growing up, girls were hardly diagnosed at all.
Hardly ever, right?
Right? Are you seeing it? It seems like there is a pretty increasing shift in that.
Absolutely. The shift is bidirectional, right? Kids are much more informed. It amazes me how many people contact me on social media or via my website who are kids. Hi, I'm 13 and I have ADHD and I need a therapist. I was like, girl, when I was 13, I was like, therapy isn't real. It's amazing just how informed these kids are. The second piece of it is that part of the problem with diagnosing girls is, largely speaking, girls and people who are socialized female present with ADHD inattentive type. Head in the clouds, disorganized, looking out the window. The famous joke, the kid comes home from school and dad says, honey, what'd you learn in school today? She's, oh, we learned about dragons. They taught you less about dragons? She goes, no, I learned about dragons. I have no idea what they do. That's right. If you're relatively well behaved and you don't cause trouble, and you've got boys and kids who are socialized male having sword fights with rulers and juggling pencils, those are the get noticed. Increasingly, we're seeing that parents know what to look for specifically for the inattentive types. It used to be, my kid doesn't have ADHD, they're not hyper. Then I would have my whole song and dance about, there's actually two kinds of ADHD, and here's the other kind. Parents and school psychologists and school counselors are increasingly aware of the symptomology of kids who are that more inattentive type. It's, to speak broadly, hyperactive kids want to do well, but they can't calm their bodies down enough to do it. And attentive type kids want to do well, but because their brain is having trouble staying attention, they develop bad habits. Right? Me studying for a test 3 minutes before the class started. Hard to break that habit until you get to high school honors chemistry. You try that stuff and you get a 71 on your test, and the teacher yells at you and you go, I'm going to have to do something different now.
That's so interesting. What other bad habits did they develop? Do you think there's more, for example, anxiety and depression among kids who are inattentive, boys and girls?
Absolutely, especially anxiety. Let's say, as a thought experiment, let's say for the next 30 seconds, your audio cuts out. I'm chattering away. Then the audio comes back in, as Zoom sometimes does. And I'm like, Catherine, I stare at you expectantly. And you go, yeah.
That's happened quite a lot in my life.
This is not my shocked face.
Yeah.
No, I was in session this morning and I just blanked out for a minute. I said to the kid, I was like, whoa, hold on, dude. I missed the last 3 minutes of what you said. I'm sorry. My brain went on walkabout. Can you say it again? Because I lead with my own neurodivergence, my clients expect that from me. I also call them out on it when they do it to me. Right.
That's great, but it sounds like you really de-escalate it. I remember where I was in that situation and I was just completely panicked, but to be able to label it and say, that's just what happened. It's a nice thing.
Like we always say in mental health, you got to name it to tame it. I did not look this way when I was 8 or 11 or even 20 when I was in college. It was this great secret shame. I was white knuckling it through everything, drinking a lot of coffee. Right? I'm almost 41. At this point, I feel like I've come into my own brain, and now it's okay. Sometimes I wander off. Sometimes my brain goes all sorts of wily thoughts. I'm particularly susceptible to what we like to call galaxy brain. Galaxy brain is one of those social symptoms of an attentive type ADHD. So it's, if I said, hey, Catherine, I need you, actually, we'll flip it. Catherine, you're going to ask me to take out the garbage, right? And I say, cool, I need to go to the store. And you look at me and say, but Matt, I asked you to take out the garbage. And then my brain says, okay, I need to take out the garbage, but to take out the garbage, I need to put these things, I need to get these things off the counter, which means need to run the dishwasher. To run the
Yeah.
dishwasher, it means I need to clean out the dishwasher. So then I'm going to put those things away. Then I have to put the new things in the dishwasher. And wait a second, we don't have enough pods. So I have to put the pod in the thing, which means I need to go to the store to buy the pod. I need to run the dishwasher to then I can take out the garbage. And it makes sense to our brains, but
Worse.
people who don't work on those rhythms or channels just
No,
take
I
it
know.
trash, man. Right.
Well, I call it the option storm. It's just
Mhm.
at any one time you could be doing 3 million things, and other people don't see those things. They're more focused. Yeah. So, how do you help girls in particular? What are your strategies with the girls? And what ages are they generally? And the females assigned at birth?
Um, One of the things that's specific to girls is that we see spikes of ADHD symptomology around their menstrual cycle. So preparing them for that, it's not only going to see the emotional dysregulation, but it's going to be harder to sustain attention for 7 to 10 days of the month. And then they always look at me funny. I'm like, listen, I'm not saying I'm super comfortable talking about your menstrual cycle, but somebody's got to, and it might as well be me. So that's thing one. The thing two, and this is where you really get into the social anxiety that comes with being ADHD and attentive. Girls, broadly speaking, are very covert communicators. There's a lot of subtlety. There's a lot of behavior that isn't really behavior, right? A lot of we don't do, and that's the thing. And if you're ADHD, you are much more wired to miss those nuances. You're going to miss the subtle look. You're going to miss the shift. And there's some part of your brain that's going, I missed something. I missed something. And that spider sense might help you come back and say, hold on, guys, I missed it. But it also can set you up for that sort of mean girl style behavior, right? Really helping girls say, boys have an advantage because a guy doesn't like you, he punches you in the face. And you go, you must not like me very much because of the face punching, right? But if a girl
There's
doesn't
something you can do with girls to help them read the room better.
reading the room is an executive functioning skill, right? So it's okay. We're going to flex that muscle. We're going to practice it. I often ate my strategies off the work of Michelle Garcia Winner. So being a social detective. Now we're craving that dopamine. We're craving that fact finding, problem solving, right? So I'll say, walk into a room and like it's Clue. You've got to solve the mystery. And it's, oh, and now the girls lean in. They're like, tell me more about this mystery, right? Now they're intrigued, right? You're taking that brain that's seeking novelty, seeking excitement, and you're reframing a social situation to play to their strengths. And I'll say, listen, text me all the things, right? And that often works really well for them. I also
Helping them notice. You're helping them notice social cues by labeling them, right? Yeah.
yeah, and by making that challenge overt, then you're drawing attention to it, you're bringing brain space to it. Because the single biggest mistake we make around social skill development for neurodivergent kiddos is this idea that you should just know it. You should just be good at it. And as I often say to administrators, can you imagine if we taught math like that? Boy, you should just know math. Golly gee, I don't. But I'm just gonna fail my taxes every year then. Come on, not every kid gets this stuff easily, especially if your brain is wired on a different wavelength than 4 out of 5 kids around you,
Do you
right?
have any idea what age is ideal to diagnose?
The research shows over and over again, right, that the younger we diagnose somebody, the better they do long term, right? Because we are naming things. And it's funny because what I see in my own practice is that diagnosing somebody doesn't necessarily make their symptoms of ADHD better, but it informs their environments, their systems to support you better. So if your third grade teacher knows your ADHD and you write a 504 plan, that's a lot better than having to fight against this label that you're lazy or weird for 3 years until you finally get one in 6th grade or 7th grade. And that's a lot of times those bad habits to come in, right? The other thing is that some parents say to me, like, I don't want my kid to be stigmatized. I don't want my kid to have a label. And I say, yeah, that's true, right? There's a lot of mental health stigma out there. It is always better to know that you're a zebra, not a weird horse, right? And there's a
Yeah.
lot of kids out there who have been told their whole lives they're horses and they should just do things that horses do. And the horses eat in the trough and they run around, and the kids are going, I can't do those things, or it's really hard for me to do those things. I am a broken horse. I'm a bad horse. Maybe you were a zebra the whole time
Mm,
and
nice.
you need the things that zebras need. Because I'll tell you, when I was just labeled gifted, I had that label. I also had labels like doesn't work to potential.
Yeah, that's a common
Right?
one.
Yeah. Space cadet.
Yeah.
They're going to get labels either way or the other. You might as well give them the right labels.
Do you find that on TikTok now you can pretty much diagnose yourself, and a lot of kids might think that they have ADHD when they don't? Do you find that you have to tell some people that they don't have it and it's just peer pressure, or are you seeing mostly real serious cases?
So, what I like to do is I like to use the term executive dysfunction, right? Because there are lots of reasons that we would have executive dysfunction, especially here in 2024 as the world burns around us and there's upheaval everywhere you look, right? There are lots of things that can contribute to executive dysfunction: anxiety, depression, trauma, OCD, sensory challenges. We could keep going. There's a lot of things. Basically, every neurodivergence comes with some form of executive dysfunction. It doesn't always rise to the level of ADHD, but so any neurodivergence is going to have some of those challenges. So I'll say, hey, while we decide whether you meet criteria for ADHD or not, let's put in these supports and structures that are going to help you either way or the other. If we post homework online so the kids don't have to remember to write the homework down, that helps every single kid. Great. That's awesome. If we text our kids reminders of what to get at the grocery store, that helps every single. Some kids can remember it, and God bless them.
Yeah.
Some kids walk out the front door and be like, "Where was I going?"
So you don't think it's a problem in any way that there might be too much awareness about ADHD and that people want that label so they won't be called a weird horse,
I
or just because of peer pressure?
I think that there are absolutely some of those cases, right? And we don't you'll notice I talked about strategies that are non-medical, right? It's
Mhm.
very easy to act or claim that you have ADHD. You can get that medication, or you can get extra time on the SAT. I
Exactly.
cannot tell
There's
you how many
perks. Yeah.
well, I cannot tell you how many times kids who have never been in any psychological practice show up when they're 16 because I think they have ADHD. And while we're here, I'm the college board, and I'm like, if your kid truly has ADHD, I will happily do it. If your kid does not,
Yeah.
then I'm going to reject this form because it is a insult to all the kids who are actually struggling with this stuff, right? To misdiagnose or fake diagnose somebody. And frankly, there are practitioners out there who will do that, and that that they gotta sleep at night too. I don't know, not my place.
No, you bring up a really good point that the world is burning and we have, I think one doctor described it as popcorn brain. So what's the difference between that and ADHD?
Right. That's why we start with, "It's so cool that you are aware of this. It's so cool you sought out this information. Let's do a lot of psychoeducation around what these things actually are, and then we'll go through the diagnostic process, right? And we'll fill out the forms, and I'll talk to your teachers and I'll talk to your parents. I always say my job isn't to say if you're smart or not. My job isn't to say if you're ADHD or autistic or dyslexic or not. My job is to figure out how your brain works, because the more we know about how your brain works, the better I can help you, the better we can craft your environment to work for you. For instance, I usually use this as an example as well. I'm colorblind, right? All the shirts in my closet are shirts that are easy to match ties to. Blue shirt with light blue. I have a dark blue tie, a light blue tie, and a silver tie that all work really well with this shirt. I'm not going to put a shirt in my closet that's difficult to match because my brain goes, not sure what color that is. Is it teal? Is it green? My wife rolls her eyes. It's gray. Environmental accommodation.
Speaking of medication, what is your take on how helpful do you find medication?
I think that medication is a vital tool. There's a kid I worked with, just adorable, energetic, sweet as pie, and ADHD as the day is long. He was getting written up all the time. Couldn't stay in his seat, forgetting his backpack, all that stuff. Classic ADHD. Mom was not a fan of medication. Mom's like, he can flex it through. I was like, he can't. He's got to work harder. He's working very hard. The only reason he was going to school was to be on the cross country team. The principal took that away from him because he had so many write ups. Mom finally, she said, let's try it. We're going to try it for a month. If I'm wrong, I'll never bring it up again. We started him on 20 milligrams of Adderall. A week later, I got a call from the principal. The school's name pops up on your phone. You're like, oh, hell, what did he do now? Hello? And he's, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean? What did I do? I don't know what I did. I don't know if you guys did a lobotomy. I don't know if you gave him some NyQuil, but he's a different kid. I'm like, what's the medication? I'm telling you, if it's done well, medication game changer.
That's a big it. Yeah. And not for everybody, but is there a difference in the way that girls react or females assigned at birth that you found?
I find that one of the things that it needs to be calibrated when we're talking about girls and female and women and people assigned female at birth is getting back to the menstrual cycles, how much water weight and weight changes throughout the month, right? So much of our diagnostic process is related to BMI, and BMI is a terrible metric. It's awful. And we've used it because we've been using it for 100 years. So you might have a time of your time of the month where your medication is working really well because your body's doing a particular thing. And then 2 weeks later, when you're retaining water and you're on your cycle, your body is acting different. And therefore your medication might be more effective, less effective, right?
For those times, how do you strategize that?
My favorite psychiatrist offers almost all of her female clients with ADHD your sort of standard Adderall and then the Adderall XR or booster tablet, like for those times of the month when your medication is working less well and you need that extra thing to get through it. It's so nuanced. We're lucky to have providers who are really informed. It's taking the time to really get to know your client. Whether your client is 8, 18, or 80, every one of our clients deserves that level of attention.
I love your idea about helping girls be more sensitive to social cues. Are there female specific strategies that you use in your practice that we should know about?
One of the best environmental supports for anybody with ADHD is exercise. Research shows that time and time again. I find providers are more likely to prescribe exercise to boys.
Interesting.
I'm not saying that Sally needs to go out with
Yeah. Yeah.
wants to. Cool, let's do it. We're seeing with the rise of these non-traditional athletic activities, things like American Ninja Warrior, rock climbing, Zumba, things that aren't team-based. Team sports are a lot of waiting. If you're on the tennis team and you have the first match and the 8th match, you're sitting a lot. That's not good. Soccer and running and ultimate frisbee, lots of running, lots of movement, those are good. But dads will be like, oh, I'm going to sign her up for baseball or softball. That'll fix it. You know how much sitting there is in softball?
And morning.
Not all sports are created equals. Talk to your kiddo about what physical activities they want to do. Dance. It's not a sport, but what's going to get you sweatier? Playing a 3-hour baseball game or doing a 1-hour dance class? If the idea is to prime the body for success, don't underestimate the power of exercise. If your kid does not want to do traditional sports, we got non-traditional sports, the arts, dance, and theater are great ways to get exercise that may not look or feel like, I'm on the sports team and look at me sporting. What matters is moving your body. That's what helps kids.
You've given us a lot of great things to think about. I thank you so much for your time. But Cynthia, have I forgotten anything?
No, you covered it really well, but I had a few things I wanted to pick Matthew's brain on.
I can talk to you guys all day.
So nice.
So reason I started Find the ADHD Girls is because I ended up interviewing 25 women that had the combined type. I was amazed that they had been missed for diagnosis too. What I heard is they suppressed themselves. They bit the inside of their cheek. They would turn over their foot. They would know that they shouldn't be getting out of their seat. They would find a socially acceptable way to get out of their seat. I was just surprised that girls with the combined type were going undiagnosed as well. Yesterday, we interviewed a pediatrician, and I don't know if you've heard of the Q Tech. It's a test that people do, QB Tech. She charges like $120. It's not definitive to say you have ADHD. But what she said, which now makes me want to advocate for it, is that when she has children take that test, or even adults, it shows their areas where they're struggling. It's data. She
Yeah.
said from that, it is so much easier for her to get the parents to accept medication for their children. It seemed like a simple thing to add to a practice if you spend a lot of time trying to encourage them about medication. Medication is the most effective treatment, and it's too bad there's so much stigma about it.
There's a lot of research to show that neurodivergent people tend to die sooner, right? One of my autistic colleagues posted the other day on LinkedIn, I have lived past the autistic frame of life. They said I would die by 51. I'm 52. It's just heartbreaking.
So they say people with ADD die sooner, sometimes because of suicide, sometimes because of accidents. I wondered if it's the people that are comorbid with depression, and they said they didn't know, they don't sort that out. I didn't know if ADHD alone causes early death, or it's the co-occurring depression that occurs with so many of these conditions.
We're not taking care of your health.
Yeah, there's a million factors. Do you know that people who are left-handed are significantly more likely to die by suicide?
Oh, that's so bizarre, really.
I'm left-handed.
And the world is not built for lefties. Most things in society are built for right-handed people. You walk into a classroom, most of the desks are right-handed. You're in art class, most of the scissors are right-handed. If you're, God help you, if you're left-handed, you want to drive a stick shift. Or you're to England. Some of the theorists think it's death by a million paper cuts.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over and over and over. Society has built tools to make things easier for ADHD folks, in addition to making it harder. I used to write myself a million reminders to pay my rent, to pay my utilities. Now, auto pay, man, set and forget it. I'm part of the reason ADHDers tend to die sooner, not just impulsivity, not just co-occurring mental health conditions, though they're very real, but it's just harder to take care of yourself in a world that is not built for you. You get more stressed out more often. When we're more stressed out, we make worse decisions. It can be something as simple as, did you get a reminder to go see your general practitioner again? Because if you didn't put it in your phone, that thing does not exist, right? This is where we get into the shame and stigma around this. So many ADHDers are not willing to ask for help. They're not willing to get an app or a reminder or do a body double. If you don't do those things, you're just making everything harder, and life is hard enough.
Yeah.
This may sound melodramatic, but I don't believe it is. We are literally saving lives. We are literally increasing the quality of life of neurodivergent people.
Oh, yeah.
To live longer and make a more interesting, dynamic world. If that's what I get to do, then my head will sleep very well when it hits the pillow tonight.
My husband wanted me to hire someone to do the house cleaning. I was home all day. It was just awful to think that I need to hire someone to clean the house when I was home all day. Other women could do this, and you can. That's part of it. I wrote an article about being left-handed because I'm left-handed. I talked about how in the early days we had to be forced to be right-handed. We were looked on as almost sinful if we were left-handed. I compared it to ADHD, how we were in a world that wasn't built for us.
That's just it. You nailed it. That kind of awareness help people understand it. It's
Yeah.
The more decisions you have to make, the more you need to monitor your environment, the more energy it takes. If you're spending more energy, you're more stressed, you're more likely to burn out. It's harder for you to show up in the way you want to.
Yeah.
It become a long-term vicious cycle.
Mhm.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're doing an awesome job, Matthew, and I hope a lot of people get to hear you.
We believe all girls with ADHD should get a fair start in life by getting diagnosed by age 8. Visit us at www.findtheadhdgirls.org. Thank you.